Today, we are going to be learning how to do the Ian Hubert technique using BoxCutter and also generating our images on Midjourney, which means that we have endless possibilities for creating assets. So let's go. Alright guys, so we are going to be learning how to do this specific asset here, the building. Before we jump in on the actual steps that we are going to take in, let me just quickly show you a few things that I did before coming to Blender. So first I use Midjourney here to generate some images of buildings. You see here that a few things are important in my prompt is the without perspective. We still have perspective, of course, but we are trying to make it as flat as possible, and I put it again flat frontal view. Here I also tested a little bit in cloudy scenarios because I didn't want the sunlight to come in the image because that would, mess around with our lighting inside Blender. It didn't work that well, so I just kept generating until I got something that had actual no direct sunlight on it. So after I did that, I pushed to a AI image enhancer. Here I just Googled, to be fair, and I found this one and I put it here and that's it. So first thing that I did is just to push the image itself. Let's do it from 0 again. So let's go to material view, file image as planes, and let's find our image that is here on downloads. And then I push the image here, push it up. So first, which plugins are important for this whole process that I'm going to show you? I'm using BoxCutter and HardOps, and I'm also using Mesh Machine. Mesh Machine is free. BoxCutter and HardOps are paid, but to be fair, I paid, I think it was $30 in a promotion 3 years ago, and I still have all the updates. Everything comes with just $30 spent over 3 years. It's a no-brainer. If you really don't have money, then, there are other ways to get it. I will not tell you how, but, And those are important because it saves you a lot of time. And this is important for me. I want to be able to do things quickly and in the best way possible. That sometimes with vanilla Blender is not the best way. Okay, so a few things in terms of BoxCutter, because you're going to use that a lot, is that here I have selected right mouse button, cancel and gone. This is really important. So whenever I hit the right mouse button, I cancel my and gone, and then I can restart. I'll be using a lot of Ctrl Z. I'll be pressing a lot this right button to cancel. It's just the way of it. I'm not the best modeler, and I'm not training that much to be. And I make a lot of mistakes, and I need to fix them quickly. So let's start by Shift A. Let's get our cube. G, Z to push it up. S, X to reshape. I'm just adding this cube as a human reference. Usually the cube is like 2 meters tall. So a human would be something like this. And then I'll just push it down a little bit. So someone that is like 180 or something like this. Then I'll take here my image that I bring from Midjourney. I'll come to the edge, click here on the edge, then I will press Shift S, Mesh Machine, Machine Tools actually, and I'll bring the object origin to the edge. And then I press 1, 5 to remove the perspective, and I'm going to scale this till I get the proper scale of the building for a human. So let's go like this, G, Z, still not the size that I need, a little bit higher, like this and like this. Actually, let's go even further like this. I think probably something like this. First thing that I'm going to do is now create an overall cube shape and how I'm going to attack creating this 3D. So actually, let's go to the tablet so we can see how to properly tackle this one. All right, guys, so just a small disclosure. I don't usually draw. I'm lazy. This is just for you to understand what is going on in my mind and how I'm thinking about approaching this. You can just look at the image and do this, everything in your mind. But of course, you cannot read my mind, so that's why we are putting this on paper, or on the tablet. So basically, this is our structure, more or less. So I have like a middle thing,
2 blocks here and 1 block in the bottom. Okay, so we need to think in terms of layers. What are the layers that we have here? So let's try to do this kind of like in 3D thing. So we have one middle layer, we have these blocks on the side, okay, that are like this, okay, which are 2 blocks. I'm not going to draw everything, fuck it. And then we have here the part in the bottom. This part in the bottom, it's smaller than the rest. So we already know that this should be a separate piece, okay? These 2 ones here, they are aligned with the middle one, but I think for us, in terms of cutting and doing everything that we need for the modeling part, we should separate them. So this should be separate, this should be separate. There's also on this one, there's a detail. If you look at the image that we got from Midjourney, there's like this detail below that we can also separate because this is a bit more insetted or indented. I don't know how to say this properly. Kind of like this, you know, so there's some space here, and I think separating this makes sense also. And then we have the final middle part in the middle. So why we are doing this? Because whenever we start cutting with the knife tool, which is important to maintain the texture when we are using BoxCutter, so I'm just bringing a bit of spoiler of the video, but knife tool is what you want using BoxCutter for the Ian Hubert technique. We are not going to be using that for the blocking part, but then for the cuttings, for creating the holes, for the details, that's what we're going to use. Whenever we're doing that, every time we do a cut in our geometry, we get extra lines that will maintain that the extra geometry that we are adding. So if we then add here, you see we are already separating this one, and then if we add more here and then more on top of each other, more on top of each other, then we see it becomes a mess, right? So that's why if we separate things into stage, when we do the final cutting, we are not messing up with the geometry that much. And it's important because there's a lot of mistakes and there's a lot of problems that happen when it comes to your geometry when you're cutting. And to fix that, if you have a bunch of things, lines everywhere, it's really hard. And also for when if you're adding bevels and things like that, it also becomes a bit harder to do that. So basically that's our plan of attack. We are going to separate into 1, 2, 3, 4, and then the small pieces, 5, 6 pieces, and we can go after to the cutting and detailing of the geometry.
All right, now that we have our plan of attack in mind, let's start by creating our cube. So here I'm just going to go to face mode, click here, Shift S again, bring the origin to face, because we want to do the scaling based on that, so we don't move the object from the ground. So let's just put it here, and now I'm going to push up to it's here, more or less, a little bit less. GZ, let's just in SZ, and there we go. That's basically what we need. Ah, shit. Make sure to always do that when you are in the orthographic view. Okay, so there we go. This is our box. Everything is correct. So now let's select the faces, all the faces. U, project from view. So I press U, project from view. That's the Ian Hubert technique. And then we'll come here to our UV editor, and we have here the projected from view UVs. But first we need to create a material, of course. So I'm gonna come here, new building. Okay, then I'm gonna click Principal BSDF, Control D. If you have the node angler add-on, if you don't have, just push this and select image texture. Not a big issue. Okay, so there we go. Now we come back to the UV editor. Let's push it here. G, Z, G, X, sorry, G, Y also here, G, X here, and then let's push to the bottom. Now let's just see if we are getting it correct. I don't want to mess up here. So let's push it down here, same thing here. Make sure that it is inside our building, because it does show up if it's not correctly placed. Okay, everything is good. So now we can also remove this, or just let's just not see it and then push it down. Okay, so we have our building here. Remember how we saw in the drawing itself, how we're going to tackle this. So basically I'm thinking about larger details and then smaller details, cuts and everything after. This way we make sure that we don't have more geometry or more lines cutting in our object than we need, and also that we can solve things and faster and also avoid a lot of mistakes. So first thing that I'm going to do here on BoxCutter, Alt W, I'll press D here. For this to be available to you, it's like this D key helper, just make sure it's enabled. So D, I have cut, and I have also choose the box. I'm gonna cut this part here and then this part here to kind of have the overall shape ready. So I'm just going to click here, bring here, let it go, double click, booyah. Same thing here, done, click, booyah. Now, last part here. So why I'm cutting like this and not this bottom here? Because you see, this is the perspective part. We don't want the perspective coming from the image. We want the perspective coming from the object itself. So here I did a bit to the right. So I'm just going to press G and bring it back to the left. And we cut it. It didn't cut for some reason. Let's do Ctrl Z. Let's see what's going on. Let's actually try again. Let's click, down, double click. Now it's cut. Now here, same thing. Double click, now it's cut. So here we have our main shape. On the sides, you see that it looks shit because the project from view that we did was from the front and this was on the side. So we basically just had like a really small area for the UVs. We can fix this now or we can fix this later. I think fixing this before is easier because later we'll have a bunch of cuts here, a bunch of lines. Then for selecting is not the easiest. So I'll just come here to faces. I'll select here, side here, side here, side here, and here. Press U, Q projection. Then there we go. Oops, press A to select everything. I'm just gonna scale down, push it here. Here the quality of this texture is not the best, so you can either just bring another concrete image, concrete picture, or you can also just bring a PBR. It's up to you, but if you bring a PBR, you do have to come here, create a new material and assign to it, okay? So I'm just going to do it like this for now. So now we can see, okay, we have proper textures here. Here on the side, you see that it's kind of like fucked. And that's one of the reasons when we actually come to cutting the final thing, we are going to use knife project and not this red cutting thing, because it does maintain the texture. So that's one of the reasons that using the knife is the best way in a later stage. Okay, so now I'm going to do is actually, I'm just going to apply all. So Q to bring hard ops, operations, smart apply, and that's it. So all the booleans are here. Now we don't have to worry about it. So now let's try to divide this into multiple chunks to make it easier for us to scale things further, to adapt if we need, and yeah, do whatever we want actually. So as you've seen, we are going to have this first part here, then the second part here, then the third part here, and one in the middle. So I'm basically just going to rename this building. I'm going to duplicate this. Oh, I think I duplicated. Oh no, sorry. This is the image in the back. So I'm selecting the building. I'm going to duplicate with Shift D 4 times. Shift D, Shift D. Let's start with this first one. So basically what I want is actually just this top part. I'm going to separate also this lower part here. So let's go here, select here, put it here, then click once, bring your mouse here. We don't want to cut, so I'm going to press X again to intersect, and then that's it. And now we have our first part here. Beautiful. So let's take the second one. Let's close this one. Let's just rename here top part. You can name whatever you want. I just like to have things organized. Here, actually, I forgot to calculate this small part here. So let's just put this also into the mix. So let's do it like this, and then we bring it like this, and then we get X, and there we go. and also here. But Leo, look at here. We bring this area that we actually don't want into the mix. That's fine. We can just fix that. I'm going to show you how to fix that soon-ish. So let's say, how can we call this? Small beat top. Actually, so we don't waste too much time repeating the same things over and over. I think I'm just going to do the middle one so you can see, and then we can actually work on the details so we don't waste too much time. Something happened here that I lost. This was on the side. Was it me? Yeah, either way, I'm just going to delete this one. I could just replace, but who cares? Okay, so let's take this one. Let's do now the middle. So here I'm going to press here. Actually, I'm going to bring from up like this, bring like this, then I press middle mouse button. Fuck, shit. So I made a mistake. I just pressed the right mouse button and I canceled the end gone, so that's great. So let's come here again, do it like this. And like this, press X, X. There we go. So let's actually fix from this one because I think it's going to be easier for us to see. So middle. So we have all the pieces here, right? And I'm just going to hide all the ones that I'm not going to use. This is just for us to continue in case we are finishing the whole building. I'm going to select here the middle. So now let's look here what we did wrong. Here it looks all right, to be fair. It looks all right. Everything looks all right, but we don't want this bottom part on this one. And I did this on purpose so we can actually fix together. We also don't want this part here. So first thing that I'm going to do with all these pieces is actually to come here. Smart apply. So now I have the geometry. So now I just come in here, G, Z, and then bring it up. GZ again, bring it up. But yeah, that's it. Beautiful. Everything is correct. The second thing that I would do now is also fix a texture. So you Q projection, and then we have here 8, select everything, bring it down like this. Boom, doom, doom, doom. And there we go. So we have the middle part right here. So let's imagine that we did this for all the pieces. Okay, we fixed everything. We fixed this here. We separated the other one. We separated the bits. And then we had the whole building divided in the pieces like we saw in our small drawings. Basically, we are going to start doing the cuts. Of course, is this like a really far away building? So you don't necessarily have to do that, but it does look better when you actually do all of this. This piece has a lot of things to cut, so I'm not going to do in this one because I don't want to bore you to death. So let's do in the top part. So this one here, first, this is the middle part. So we don't actually need this, so I'm not going to take this part into account. What I'm going to do is actually, I'm going to come here, and now we're going to start working with our knife tool. I press N and T to remove all the extra fluff. On the sides, I'll press D. We come to our knife tool, take our box, and then we come here and let's cut this shit. So click here, bring it, double click, cut one. Click here, oops, click here. Double click, cut 2. This is the middle. We don't need to do it here. Come here. Oops. Oops. It's not the way we want. Okay, come here. Double click, cut through. Now, final thing, come here, cut through. All right, so there we go. Now let's come here inside faces. Because it's a knife cut, we don't have to apply everything. We just come here inside and it should be good. What I'm going to try to do is actually clean it a little bit. So I'm going to select here. I'm using, again, mesh tools or machine tools. And I'll try to dissolve this edge. And it does work. So now we have a perfect square here. Same thing here, dissolve edges. Basically, when we use the knife tool, we are the Blender is going to create, or hard ops, BoxCutter, I don't know who creates this, who cares, created this line here to maintain your shape, right? So you don't get distorted, you don't get fucked up. And because you're doing cuts on top of each other, sometimes we don't need this extra line. So that's basically what I did here. So now let's select all these faces. Let's press Y to inset a little bit. So this is our windows. There we go. Beautiful. So I'm going to select first the outsides here, actually. I'm pressing Alt and in the corner, now I'm holding Shift to also maintain the selection. And there we go. And the same thing here. And then the same thing here. Now I'm going to press E to extrude, Y, and I'm going to push it back a little bit. Now I'm going to do the same thing in the middle, E, Y, and push it even further. Oh, fuck. I think I did a mistake. Yeah, I fucked up, guys. Now I'm maintaining this stupid line, so I'm just gonna come back. It's good because you see that there's a lot of fucking up that happens. So I'm gonna press Ctrl Z, bring it back. Actually, I'm gonna come back all the way before I did the inset, which is here. I press W to get out of BoxCutter, because sometimes then you start cutting by mistake. I'm gonna do the extrude before the inset. So extrude, Y, there we go. And now I'm going to inset, extrude again, and even further. Now I'm going to create a new material, assign these windows a new material. I'm gonna use here now some materials that I have from, I forgot the name of the add-on, Kirops. It's like these glasses that comes with the add-on, but you can just create your own material. It's not a big deal. Then I applied the glass here, and then there we go. Our glass is there, our object is here. Oops, see, I almost cut it here, something by mistake, a W to get out again, so we don't do that. So now you see, we have here the glasses, everything is fine. Let's see in perspective, you see, beautiful. Let's push here in the middle. So basically what we do, in this case, I think in this building, the photo shows that these two top arrows are supposed to be bigger than this one. This also supposed to be a bit more to the inside, like insetted. Which is also fine. But here what I did in my final one, I just pressed S, Y, and I made it like a bit bigger like this. And you can do, and that's one of the good things about separating those pieces, is that you can just play around and reposition them and do other crazy kind of stuff. You can do whatever you want. And it's basically easier for you to do the modeling itself, so you're not so limited. So I just followed all of this that I just showed you here into my final thing, and then let's open that up again. So it's this one, you see here, it's the final thing, how it looks. Let's go to the render view. Here we see all the windows, and then with the lighting, and it does look quite all right. Here, one thing that I didn't do, that I forgot to do, is to just first Shift S, bring the object origin to the geometry, and then press S to scale down a little bit. I'm gonna do the same thing here, scale down a little bit. It creates a bit more interest. One thing that I just saw also in the image is that this part, they have like a small inset that I can bring it here, extrude Z up, so creates, yeah, this thing here. Bit more interesting. Probably the camera is not even going to come here, but you know, who cares? Let's just make it nice. And then there we go. We created this and this. So it's looking nice. I think this one can also, first, let's bring object origin to geometry, S to scale down. And then it's also a little bit inside, like we see in the photo. But now, actually, I'm scaling everything. So I'm not going to do that. I'm going to actually just scale on X and then on Y. I need to inset. I need to apply all, Control A, apply all, S, Y, and there you go. Beautiful. And that's it. That's basically it. Now we have our final thing. Let's just bring it back with all the extra fluff that we had, like some of the grass. Of course, this grass doesn't make sense to be here, but you know, it's just for the sake of it. And there we go. And there we have our final thing. And we have our assets that we can just save and put in our asset library, and everything would be nice. So that's basically it. So just to summarize, when we are doing the cuts in the object itself, let's use the knife tools because that maintains the texture. When we are blocking everything, we use the intersect. You can also use the cut, but I prefer to use the cut in the beginning when we are doing the bigger shapes, you know, maintaining, meaning cutting these areas here, cutting these areas here, cutting these areas here, and then I just separate everything. Instead of separating, you could just create different blocks out of the box, or just bring the box and start modeling. But I like to do that when I already see the texture here in the 3D view, the 3D viewport, sorry. It just looks easier for me. Of course, this texture is not the most high quality, so if you get close, you see that everything is stretched, so you could potentially just bring your own texture different from that. Here also, because there's not a bunch of details, also basically I could just replace the whole thing, the whole image with proper texture. That can be a thing also if you want. I don't want to do that. I'm a bit lazy. I think this would do fine in a city where this is just one of the buildings in the city. So I'm satisfied with that. Okay, so I hope you got something out of this, and I'll see you in the next one. So if you want to see content about filmmaking, 3D, and photography, just subscribe, and we'll see you next week. See you.